Hello friends, it's Nancy from Astrology and Angel Mediums today with a weekly check-in reading after several, probably months now at this point since I've done one on my channel. I've been really busy, so I haven't had a ton of time on the weekends to record quietly. So I decided today I'm going to do one of these for the week of, I don't even know what day it is today. I think today is July 6th, maybe? July 6th through, so Sunday, July 6th. And that would be July 12th, Saturday, July 12th, maybe. We'll see if those are the right dates. I'll put the right dates in the description. So I hope everyone's been doing okay. I know I haven't been posting a lot of videos. I haven't had a lot of downtime, which is a good and bad thing. And then any kind of downtime I do have, I just want to be a potato on my couch and not be a person. So I appreciate you guys still being here. I'm going to try to make a little bit of time to come up with some content. I've been checking out other tarot channels, and I really like the idea of like video responses. So I'm maybe doing some of those. Not that anyone's invited me to that table, but I thought it'd be interesting. And I also want to start a couple of different series, kind of sharing other stuff. So it's been a while since I've done one of these. I haven't even been doing them for myself personally. So what do we need to know this week? We have the Two of Swords reversed. All right, what do we need to do? And what do we need to know? What do we need to do? The Princess of Cups reverse, which is the Page of Cups. All right, and then what do we need to what do we need to release? We have the Queen of Wands. And then what do we need to release? The Two of Wands. Okay. Interesting. So let's get into it and let's see what these cards really want us to focus on for this week. The very first card is going to be what we need to kind of know. So here we have the Two of Swords reverse. Now, typically, Two of Swords can talk about refusing to see something, maybe a lack of intuition, a lack of kind of trusting ourselves. And so with this being reversed, I kind of feel like it's kind of saying like maybe we are still lacking some clarity, but maybe we're not as much in the dark as we may believe that we are. Maybe there's some situations or something that we have had a lot of clarity on, but we are just not really allowing ourselves to kind of step fully into trusting that. Now, intuition is one of these things that can be not just deeply personal, but also a little bit slithery, I guess we can say. It can be challenging to kind of pinpoint it at times. Sometimes it comes in and it's like full, like I understand exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. You know, I'm exactly where I need to be. I'm doing the right thing, this, that, the other. Other times it can just feel a little bit like there's almost like an internal tug of war between trusting that intuition and what we know about a situation or what we know about ourselves, or the facts, so to speak, the intellectual versus the intuitive. And it's interesting because this being a swords card, there is that kind of sense of that mental acuity. Twos are typically a reminder of choices, of harmonizing, of relationship and connection. And so to me, this is almost saying like there's something here that we need to be very aware of, that maybe we do have a lot more clarity on, but we're choosing to kind of not really move into trusting that. Like we are kind of in a lot of ways kind of blinding ourselves and overthinking the situation, or kind of saying like, oh, it's too hard for me to make a choice. I don't really know what the right choice is here. But with it being reversed, I think it's kind of this internalized energy. So maybe we're making some decisions, some choices internally, but it's hard for us to kind of act on it. And so I think with what we need to know this week is that maybe we need to learn how to trust our initial thought process and what we know to be true in the situation versus kind of falling for the external noise or the things that maybe are kind of distracting us a little bit this week. Now, with what we need to do, we have the Princess of Cups card. Now, this is essentially the Page of Cups. Again, this is another reverse card. So there's this internalizing of what our intuitive self is really saying. When I think of the pages, I think of them as this naive, kind of young, inexperienced energy. I think that maybe we've been wanting to kind of step out in some way, or maybe we're wanting to kind of take a risk or kind of go out and do something a little bit different, but there is a little bit of like a hesitation with that. With this being internalized as well, it's that reversed energy. It's kind of saying like, okay, am I on the right track? Am I doing the right things? Am I exactly where I need to be? And I think with this is that maybe we need to kind of lean back into understanding what it is that really truly makes us happy, what makes us feel connected and grounded and rooted. Like, what are we ready to kind of move on from? And so I feel like a lot of this energy is kind of redirecting what we're trying to kind of do at this moment, especially with what it is that we need to do is kind of maybe check back in internally with what it is that kind of drives us creatively, what makes us feel a little bit more intuitively connected. And so I think for this week, we are given this reminder of maybe taking some time to look at what it is that maybe really connects us to the things that we have, especially when it comes to like relationships, connections. What are we thinking? What choices are we making that really allow us to feel more connected intuitively, that make us feel a little bit more supported in different ways, especially with what this is what we need to know and this is what we need to do. So it may not feel like a time to go out into the world and celebrate in some new ways, but that doesn't mean that you can still like not prioritize what it is that makes you feel connected, that makes you feel supported, that makes you feel excited about the next phase or excited about what it is that you really want for yourself moving forward. And I feel like with the pages, there's this reminder that maybe we need to have like that positive expectancy that we do whenever we're a little bit inexperienced about something. I think like that's something that a lot of us tend to forget as we get a little bit older and a little bit more crotchety, I guess, and have life kind of show us that it's not always going to work out in the ways that we would like for it to. But I think that a lot of this energy is kind of saying like, can we remember a little bit of that? Like, can we kind of move back into having a little bit of clarity about the things that really make us happy and the things that really drive us into what it is that we want so that we're ready for the next phase? Now, with what we need to release, we have the Queen of Wands. So the Queen of Wands is, to me, like very much a reminder of like that mover and the shaker. And maybe we just need to not be so ready to be so busy. Maybe we've been trying to like hurry up and feel like we need to be going and doing and kind of getting out there and like, not to say showing off, but maybe showing up in very visible ways. And so I think with this being what we need to release is that maybe we need to kind of remove ourselves from this sense of I'm the one that has to make things happen. I'm the one that has to, do this and that and the other. We're still in Cancer season, right? So we need to have this like time to reflect and reconnect and kind of like find the sense of home and sense of direction for ourselves, like what it is that really nurtures us so that we can kind of step fully into the energy of the Queen of Wands. When I think of the queens, not only are they like essentially kind of like the divine feminine energy of that suit, I think that there's also this reminder of what it is that makes us feel more centered and grounded in that experience. So the wands are our fire, our passion, our sense of momentum and movement. So this may not be a week that can feel very much like I have a lot of places to be, a lot of places to go. We may feel like maybe we're having to kind of pull back a little bit on that energy and taking some time out to kind of, not to say reconnect, but maybe reassess what it is that we really need, because this being what we need to release. I know that we're about to have a Mercury retrograde here, I think possibly this week. It's been a while since I've tracked any astrological movement, which is not very good of me, but it is what it is. I think with the Queen of Wands and the release pile is that maybe we need to understand, like, we don't always know everything, because I feel like the Queen of Wands is also deeply rooted in like magic, right? I feel like she is the witch in a lot of ways. Of the different queens. And so I feel like maybe this is kind of saying, like, we need to kind of let go of something that maybe is kind of holding us back from really showing up in our own personal magic and how we share. And I think that the personification of like the lioness in this deck especially, it just kind of shows you the sense of like, maybe we just don't always have to kind of bare our teeth and share like our frustration or anger about certain things, because it's fire, right? So fire can be something that moves so quickly, like anger, right? And in the same vein can be something that is extremely destructive. So maybe we need to kind of release the things that have been frustrating us, or the things that feel like they are, you know, kind of edging us to kind of like burn it all down, so to speak. And so I think in a lot of ways, especially we're kind of looking at the other energies that are kind of like present for this week, is that maybe we need to be a little bit more cautious when it comes to what feels frustrating, what feels angering to us, what feels like essentially kind of like shoving us into reacting. So I think that it's more of understanding our sense of responsibility to the actions of our anger or our emotions in the future. So maybe we just need to kind of take a step back and not be so reactive this week. And finally, with what we need to contemplate is the Two of Wands. Now, I like to look at this card as one of taking the opportunity to kind of be strategic about what it is that we want. So I feel like this is very much a card of choosing carefully. It's interesting to have another two, right? I feel like this is very much this reminder of what it is that we are actually focusing on, and essentially kind of like reminding us what it is that we need to kind of be very aware of whenever we're kind of moving forward with certain ideas, with certain plans, how we're showing up in different ways. So I think that this is kind of saying like, hey, we need to kind of remember, like, what are we planning? What's the long-term, you know, kind of ramifications of whatever we're doing, or whatever we need to let go of, or whatever we've been overthinking. What is it that we actually can do with the energy that we have this week? So while it may not feel like a lot of things are ready to kind of like get out there and kind of shift and move, and it may not feel like a very significant week in a lot of ways when it comes to like maybe meeting some of our goals or getting like stuff done, or really being able to kind of go out there and do a lot of different things, I think that this is kind of saying like, what can we plan for? How can we be a little bit more intentional about what we're doing with this energy? Because if I think of the Two of Wands, I think it's very much about, you know, kind of coming together and choosing what it is that we really want for ourselves in a way that really builds upon the things that really truly make us feel happy, and the things that make us feel like connected towards, you know, what it is that is our lifelong goal, if that makes sense. I don't know if like that's a little long-winded, or if it makes sense. I hope it does. But I think that this week can just feel a little bit like, not to say we're putting things on pause, but maybe it's more of a, we need to reflect. We need to kind of take some time out to kind of reconnect and learn to kind of trust ourselves a little bit more. We've been a little bit, you know, out of sync with what we're doing, or maybe we're kind of allowing a lot of the external noise to kind of make us forget like what we can actually do at our level. And it isn't so much about like saying, oh, I have to be the one that, you know, shows up and does this and is like, you know, again, kind of like saying like this forceful kind of energy of like, move out the way, let me do it my own way, or I know best, or whatever. I think it's more about, you know, being a little bit more teachable, being a little bit more like aware that we don't always know everything, and we, you know, need to kind of like connect with ourselves and kind of pay attention to what we have going on with what we need and what we have at this current time. Now, I think with the Two of Wands kind of ending the reading here, I think it's more of a gentle reminder that even if things seem like they're very challenging or there's not a lot of options, I think that this is about us looking at not just the internal motivation and the internal kind of magic that's pushing us forward. I think it's also a reminder of like, okay, I can kind of adjust and move with the things that change. And we have this, like, I guess in a lot of ways, a much deeper understanding of how temporary a lot of these things are in our lives. And maybe that's kind of the thing here, is that like, we need to kind of just contemplate that life is constantly in flux and constantly shifting and moving. And so maybe this week is just one of those where like we need to kind of internalize and kind of step back into understanding that not everything that happens is what it needs to be, but it can always be something that is of benefit for us. So I do want to pull from the Elemental Empath Oracle because I feel like it's very Cancer season. So let's see what we have here. We have perspective, and this is kind of telling us, you know, we need to evaluate our beliefs. We need to kind of understand that we don't always know everything that is happening and why it is happening. I think that it's kind of saying, again, observe our reactions, right? It's not about just going out there and just like being gung-ho and, you know, spurring ourselves into action. Sometimes we need to kind of take a step back and be like, okay, is my reaction appropriate for what is happening? Is it in alignment with what will, you know, be the best thing for the highest good of everyone involved? Is this really what I need to be doing? I think that if anything, it's more of like we need to kind of root and ground ourselves a little bit more. And I think that's what these cards are kind of saying, is that maybe we need to remember that perspective within ourselves, what we prioritize, what we, you know, really need at this time, instead of just kind of flying off the handle and allowing emotion not that I look at emotions as like good or bad, but allowing an emotion that maybe feels out of alignment with what it is that we want to dictate how we react in certain situations. So I think that this is just kind of saying, hey, can we kind of connect a little bit more? Can we kind of be aware and connected, and we just pay attention? And then I also want to pull from this Cries from the Souls Oracle. It's been a while, you guys, so I'm like, let me pull a couple cards. I haven't been, you know, here all the time, so we're gonna just do one last card. And we have Certainties. My thoughts open me up to inner and outer change. I think that this is a beautiful message in the sense of we have to understand that, you know, what is going on inside of our big ol' heads is going to affect how we view the things that are happening in our external world. And so be very aware of like what's happening, what kind of inner and outer changes are trying to happen at this time. And if you haven't been very present in that energy, why not? Why haven't you been aware of, why haven't you been aware of how this energy affects you, and what sort of things are you have, like what sort of thoughts are on repeat, right? What sort of thoughts aren't going on that maybe aren't really in alignment with what it is that you want? How can you connect more to the positive expectancy of a life that feels intuitively right for you, that feels exciting for you, while also allowing yourself to feel very, not to say dominated in the space, but maybe like connected to the effervescence that you have within yourself, so that it makes it a lot easier for you to kind of choose things that feel in alignment and in harmony with you. So, and I feel like this is very much a reminder of that harmony between the inner and outer self, right? So I think that both of these cards are kind of telling us, all right, we need a little perspective. on what's been going on. We need to kind of take a step back and kind of look at things a little bit more objectively instead of subjectively. And we need to understand why we're reacting a certain way. So we need to kind of look at, what's going on internally and how is that affecting how I'm showing up externally. So I think this week is going to be one that's very reflective. Maybe there's going to be a lot of opportunities for us to kind of take a step back and kind of just check in. So I hope that this reading made sense. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you guys even enjoy these. I want to say thank you so much for trusting me with these readings and for showing up and watching my channel. I know that right now the world feels very confusing, would be the nicest word I can kind of use. Very disheartening in a lot of ways, but I hope that you know that you make a difference and I appreciate you, and that even if only one other person is the one that sees you or hears you, you're still significant. So I appreciate you. Please take care, stay safe, and as always, make good choices. Bye.